Okay, so I'll do roll call to officially start the CAB Policy and Budget Subcommittee. Nicole Green
Aye, yeah.
and Justin Van Zerber.
Here.
Okay, so the meeting is officially started.
Okay, thank you. Welcome everybody to our first Policy and Budget Subcommittee of the year. I'm very excited. You'll see me smiling because I'm very excited about this call. It's time to kick the new year off in the right way. So we first want to start off with welcomes and introductions and announcements. Although some of us may be familiar with each other, we do have new members in the subcommittee. So I do want to go around and do introductions. My name is Nicole Green. I am the chair for Policy and Budget Subcommittee and Vice Chair on CAP. And we'll start with members. Go ahead. Thank you.
I'm Justin Van Zerber, just a general member of CAB, and I think I'm vice chair of this subcommittee, which is wonderful.
Yes.
Okay. You want me to call the other people, Nicole?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm Monique Tate. I'm with the Office of Reentry and Justice Support to this body. And I'll ask Jenna to introduce herself, please.
Thank you, Monique. Janet Evans with the Contra Costa County Office of Education, running the Game Plan for Success program in all 3 jails.
Okay, and Jill Ray.
Hi there, Jill Ray with Supervisor Candace Anderson's office, District 2.
Okay, thank you. Next, we will open up if there's any announcements from any of our members first. No, and if anyone from the public happen to have any announcements. We have a very small group today, so we moving kind of a little quick through here. I see none. And thank you, Monique, for pulling up the agenda. And moving on to any public comments. Don't see any. Okay. Okay, and if you don't have the agenda, it is posted in the chat. Okay, so moving on to the next agenda item, approval of the minutes from our November 16th, 2022 CAP Policy and Budget Subcommittee, which is on page 4, it's attachment 1. So we'll kind of review those.
Good morning, you. Good morning, you guys. It's Lanita.
Good morning, Anita. How are you?
I'm okay. I'm on a conference call and we're finishing up, so I'm gonna put you guys on mute for a second.
Okay.
Thank you.
Do I hear a motion to approve?
Yeah, I can motion to approve.
And Monique, since Lanita is finishing up her call, am I allowed to go ahead and second it?
Yes.
Okay, so I'll second to go ahead and approve the agenda minutes, from our last subcommittee meeting back on November the 16th.
Okay, so I'll go ahead and do roll call for the vote. So Nicole Green.
Aye.
Justin Van Zerber.
Aye.
And Lanita, I don't know if you are able to vote on this item. Are you able to vote? Oh, we
I
just
can
did
vote and I
Yes.
can vote aye.
Thank you so much. So motion carries.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, moving on to our next agenda item, which is discuss the membership. Just a quick glance looking over our membership outline for our CAP community members, which starts on, page 7, attachment number 2. This covers what we discussed at our retreat in reference to each person's position, what part of the county they're in. At the bottom, it outlines our subcommittees. So I'll open that up if there's any comment or discussion from our members regarding the membership outline.
I'd like to add something, Nicole, if I may.
Okay. Yes, ma'am.
So I just want to bring it to everyone's attention that this has been updated since the retreat. So outreach and community engagement, at that time, Crawford was the temporary chair, but at their meeting on Tuesday, they were able to vote for Evan Decker. So he's the new chair. So Crawford won't be on that committee. He was just there just to fill in until they decided on a chair. They don't have a vice chair yet, but Evan will be facilitating the meeting next month.
Okay.
Okay, and then Joe, okay, no, I see that. Okay, Joe switched over to, did he switch over to
He
programs and
did.
searches? Okay,
He did, yeah. And when, if you notice on here, we're still looking to fill the 3 vacancies for alternates.
Okay.
So
Mhm.
that is our primary focus now, is to continue to do outreach so that we can get more applicants and hopefully bring on 3 people as alternates.
okay. Johnny, you hear that? The sales pitch.
Or if it's not Jana in particular, I'm sure she has a lot of networking abilities. So anyone that you may want to recommend to apply. And also, I do want to mention that we had done a really big push for people from West County, and now we have more West County members now. So Crawford saw this and he said, now we want to look at maybe expanding some folks in Central County, although anyone is welcome to apply, but we would like to see a few more representation from Central County.
That's great. I know at one point we were trying to really get west, and now
Mhm.
our numbers are up in west.
Yeah. So I think that our efforts paid off,
Yes, they
working
did a
with,
great job.
like the Board of Supervisors, Jill and her team, and Elisa, and just all of the members in the county have really helped to get that word out for us.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Thank you, Monique, for that. Any other comments?
No, I looked at the thing this morning before I left home, and I said, "Oh, there's been some changes." Yeah. So I was like, "Oh, okay."
Yeah. So next month, or at the main CAB meeting, I will update it again and take Crawford off, and Evan will be the chair. And hopefully we'll continue to see more changes in filling those vacancies.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. If there's no more questions in reference to our comments in reference to the membership outline, we can move on to our next agenda item, which is the review the CAB 2002 budget recommendations, attachment 3, pages 8 through 11.
And I'm gonna switch over to my work laptop now that I'm off this call.
Okay.
So you guys will see me coming in, and then I'll hang up on this side.
So for this section, what I really want to do on our first call is I really wanted to bring both Justin and Anita up to speed on what this committee worked on last year. So I had a question for you, Monique, and if you're not sure, maybe Jill can answer, but there was some additional detail I want in here that I did not ask you for. So I wanted to also provide a copy of the budget, which we can look at on February, that outline of the budget. And then there were some key points that Lila Crawford and myself worked on. I kind of went into more depth about these recommendations that we gave to CCP, and for the additional overage of monies, and how we are requesting for certain CBOs and partners like H3 or Behavioral Health, and giving them recommendations on how to reallocate their money. Am I able to share that document that Crawford typed together, or would I have to pull something together? Because I think it's key information for Justin and Lanita to see.
Yeah. I mean, I think you can share it if you like. There shouldn't be a problem with her sharing a different document, Jill, even though it wasn't published as a public document. Do you think?
As long as you put it with the minutes, you'll be fine. She can present it and just
Okay.
put it in the minutes.
Okay.
So that's what I'll do for February. I totally forgot to
for
ask you.
February. Okay.
Yeah, because it was too late for me to bring it to you, but as I was reading through the agenda, that would really help Justin and Lanita really see what we were focusing on. So in this section, you've seen these recommendations during our retreat, but I really wanted to hone in on and focus on the 3 main recommendations that we were looking into, which is recommendation 1, recommendation 5, and recommendation 6, which is the housing, the expound on the, excuse me, as I'm going through this, the disability part of it, and as well as employment. And I know that you all have probably had a second to look at it during our retreat, and I wanted it to be posted here. And I apologize, I didn't add that additional data for this call, but Lila Crawford and myself, we went into depth in trying to expanding this for example, recommendation number 1, which is in reference to housing. We kind of went into more depth on how they can expand on housing around pre-release services, gave some recommendations on probably how behavioral health can move their funding around in reference to the AB 109 probation, not probation, population and the shelter beds. We're also asking for different things like work groups. Also asking for different things like work groups, and you can't see all that here, right? So I want to be able to provide you both with those different bullets, because it's going to be important for us three to look at that when we're trying to decide on the budget recommendations. The whole goal of our subcommittee is to focus on these recommendations, the recommendations from the full CAB, and make recommendations on the budgets on how the funding should be allocated. Last year, we didn't do that. We felt that we needed to collect data. We didn't feel, also with the programs and services, we didn't feel comfortable with saying move money around without actually collecting data and understanding what money should be moved. So we figured this year we would ask for CCP to create some work groups like around housing and talk to those key providers such as H3 or AOD or mental health to pretty much understand, get an idea of where more support is needed for our population. And then at that point, we can probably say, okay, based on this data, we recommend that this amount of money should be moved here, or maybe this department should readjust it. So that's where we left off. And what I recommend is for our next meeting for that document to be there, because I think that will probably open it up for you both, because I really would love your feedback on those things that we recommended. And it gives more depth into this recommendation. So we can first look at those 3 just to kind of go back over them again. And then we can open it up for discussion, because I'm really excited to have that fresh eyes on this and get your feedback on it. So again, recommendation number 1, we noticed, as we mentioned at the retreat, and I know that you guys are probably seeing as well during COVID, things have changed. And there is a high need for housing to serve our population. And we were also able to identify, the same as Patrice discussed on the retreat, different areas that people are impacted within our reentry population that's outside of just AB 109. So with the surveys and other data that was collected, RJ was able to see that there is a much bigger need. So last year, we really dive deep into this area to kind of figure out where are those housing most needed. For example, mental health, AOD, or individuals with co-occurring disorders. We talked about the gap of services for pre-release, from when they come from jail to back into the community. There is no housing there. And we, wanted to recommend to CCP to expand on that and providing better options for them. So that was recommendation number 1. From our retreat and what's in here, did you, any subcommittee members have any ideas or open up for discussion around recommendation number 1?
I think I just have clarifying questions, Nicole. So
Okay.
With regard to this funding stream, is there discussions with H3 and like overlap of services and so like connecting those services?
Yes. Last year we were able to have presentations here that we can do again this year.
Okay.
And there is a conversation that are being held with H3 through RJ. Jill, you can definitely step in as well, but there has been a lot of work with H3. And that's one of the reasons why we want to create a work group, so that we can now really dig deep into those conversations that we had last year and hopefully resolve some of the things that we identified.
Yeah, so I would just add to that, because of the work that CAB was doing, this is a fairly new conversation with H3, not to say provide housing, but I think that the nuances of the needs of this population, previously AB 109 funded shelter beds, which our shelters are wet shelters and not always the best place. So I think there's a whole lot going on all of a sudden, because there's a lot of funding, and with Cal AIM, and I just think having this group be part of that conversation is so integral in the whole fabric because of the boots on the ground experience. So it's an important conversation that this group started, and I look forward to hearing more. And I just wanted to also say really quickly, I listened in on a webinar that was meeting the housing needs of people who've been incarcerated. And there's sirens that are about to go behind me, so if you hear them, I apologize. And one of the presenters was Lao. And we have the benefit in our county to have Lao as a provider, and it was phenomenal. And so as you do your deep dive, I will share this with Monique because I know that they have the video available afterwards and all the information. But I just think it's such a critical piece of the conversation.
Jill was at the call yesterday at 9:30. Yeah, I had registered to get on there, but my office and we getting ready to move, major move, and we've been.
I think the video is going to be available.
Okay.
That's what I was looking for, and I'll share it with Monique when I find it.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I would love to see that.
Jill,
I did.
Oh, go ahead.
I did have a question though. When we speak about the different recommendations in CAB work, are we talking about county jail? Or are we talking about people coming home from prison? Or are we talking about all of it?
It's really much. Go ahead, Jill.
Oh, AB 109 is just funding for the people who are in our detention system at the county level.
Okay.
But I think it is an important conversation to have to ensure that the parole system in our county is also hooked into opportunities as well. That's a nuance that ORJ has been working on for quite a few years.
Okay.
And I definitely do agree with that. And to add to it, Lanita, our recommendations is, like Jill said, focus on the AB 109, but they are in a sense tied with parole, because some of those individuals, it's like it's mixed and mingled a little bit.
Right, and that's why I asked. That's exactly.
So I mean, it still benefits some of those that do fall into this category.
Okay.
Good questions. But I do know, I really wish I would have added that document because it would have answered a lot of questions for you. But I didn't think about it till last minute. When you see those bullets, and it will open up, it probably will answer some of the questions you all have. And again, I apologize for that, but those are different things that we wanted to look into as well.
Okay.
Any other questions before I move on to any public comment regarding recommendation number 1? And just to add, me and Crawford are going to try to follow up on those work groups with CCP, because like Jill said, it's something new, and we do want to ensure that someone from CAB is involved to be able to bring that information back. So this is all something that we came up with last year. So that's why I'm so excited about this year and going into 2023, because we're working on some awesome new things that I hope to see before my last year is up. So let's go down to any public comment. Okay, let's go down to recommendation number 5. So recommendation number 5 is focused on the need for individuals with disabilities. There was a lot of talk about I don't want to say lack of support, because there is support, there's just, I don't want to even say concerns. We've talked about issues in reference to staffing for within the county, the need for individuals that need mental health support, ensuring that there's services for those with disabilities are provided with AB 109 funding. Also with feedback from the surveys and just research done within CAB, there is additional needs around housing, ensuring that there's housing available for individuals with disability. There's services for individuals with disability. We did have some presentations last year from our mental health. I forgot who came, Monique, from H3 to talk about the because there are housing.
Dr. Marie, I don't remember her last name.
She's with behavioral health. She's not with
okay.
We did have talk around that. And we did elaborate more to CCP on what we wanted to focus on, other services that were needed. So this was a great one that came up because there is a need for individuals with disability. There's people that come out. It's not just about their backgrounds and that they've been to jail. There's other needs that they may have, and ensuring that they have the proper services to be successful when they come home. I know a lot of the housing are not ADA equipped for people, just different things like that. So I'll open up for the CAB members. Did you have any questions about recommendation number 5, or when you read it, any feedback about that section?
No, I didn't have any questions on that one.
I mean, I think I align with all of it. I think it's incredible the work that you guys have done. Again, clarifying just is this the recommendation we make, or is the attempt that we are getting more detailed based on those focus groups that you were alluding to?
So these are the recommendations that we make. So these
Okay.
are the ones that we submitted to CCP, and through these recommendations, we elaborated more in depth.
Okay.
And then we submitted an additional document to them, kind of breaking down these recommendations a little bit more.
Mhm.
So what we did different last year is we submitted our recommendations, and then we looked at the budgets and we compared the actual budget to our recommendations, kind of figure out the departments that were involved or the CBOs that were involved, and then broke down. So for example, say disabilities, and we looked at behavioral health. And like Jill Scott said, there's funding there for the shelters, but that's more of a warming center. So we made suggestions that, hey, maybe you can use your funding this way to help someone that has disability. So there's a more in-depth kind of document. I'm sorry, go ahead, Jill.
Jill Ray?
So mixing things.
Jill.
Sorry, there's behavioral health housing, and then there's H3 housing, which is the shelter.
Yes.
So those are two totally different things.
Sorry.
The we presented to you was the behavioral health housing,
Mhm.
which is, specific to those people who have a behavioral health diagnosis.
Okay.
H3 shelters is open to anyone. And it's not a supportive,
So let me ask you this question, because as you was talking, I'm picturing the budget, and it's not here for me to circle that section. And I'll share that with you guys. I don't know if we have it, but in the budget that we looked at with Patrice, and this is probably why I mixed the two, there's a section that said behavioral health, and I know it's split it in half. I know it's broken into like threes. And there was a part that said shelter. So even though it fell under behavioral health, that little section is H3.
No, it fell under health services, I believe.
Okay.
Detention health, right? Which is
Mhm.
medications and all of those things that
Okay.
are struggling with behavioral health. So yeah, it's divided up in a variety of ways that can be quite confusing.
I'm trying to picture it as I'm talking to you, but I thank you for that. So what we'll do is, for our February call, we'll have that document in here so we can actually look at it, because it'll make more sense what Jill was talking about when you see it, when you actually look at it. And when I had my eyes on it last year, it kind of opened up when you can see the budget and how everything is broken down, because we will be responsible for assisting RJ with making those recommendations based on that document anyway.
Yeah.
So this is more of a recap for y'all.
Okay. And now I know what kind of music you listen to.
Yes.
You said Jill Scott.
You should be able to pull out that document, right? It's just the budget document, the AB 109, or are you talking about the CCP budget?
The budget document.
From
Was
CCP?
that in our other packet though?
I think it was I know it was in our retreat packet.
Okay. Okay.
And
Yeah.
thank you for catching that. It is Jill Ray. I'm sorry I called you. You're famous, Jill Ray. I called you Jill Scott. And
I know,
love Jill Scott.
I heard that as well. I can find it, but I don't know if I'll be able to find it for this meeting, but I definitely can pull it up and we can, I can
Okay.
share it with the group and then definitely have it for next month.
Okay. Thank you, Monique.
Thank
You're
you.
welcome.
That keeps me from going back in my email.
So any more comments for recommendation number 5 before we go to number 6?
Mm.
Moving on. Scroll up a little bit. So recommendation number 6 was in reference to employment for individuals for county jobs. We did have Charles from the Workforce Development come and do a presentation. We did have a discussion about individuals that the feedback was around individuals that tried to apply for county jobs. However, they are unable to get employed due to their background. I do know that there is some talk about that being looked into on how that can be done. I did want to ask Monique if we're still able to work on what we left off with Dale Hamilton about the employment and allowing people to come to full cab that may have been previously incarcerated to talk about their experience.
We definitely can do that, but you all would, as a group, can say, yes, you'd like for people to come in. And then I think it kind of crossed over to cab overall as well.
Yes.
So that's something you might want to bring up at the cab full body meeting.
Okay.
Or we also, I'll go ahead and say this here at this body, we have our agenda planning meeting, which Crawford would like for it to be from 3 to 4 instead of 1 to 3. So he would like to reduce it to 1 hour because we have so many meetings, and then he'd like to do it at the end of the day if possible. So I haven't sent that out yet, but that is a meeting for the chairs. Now, occasionally, Justin may be asked as a vice chair to step in your place. But generally the chairs, they meet monthly and we go over how to prepare for the next agenda. So we could do it there, Nicole, or you can propose it at the next cab meeting as well.
Okay, I can do that. And Lenita, I know that you were on our cab last year. I don't know if you recall that, but to bring Justin up to speed, Dale Hamilton was a previous cab member that Patrice spoke about that actually passed away last year, and he's done some amazing work. And one of the things that me and him were working on was we thought it would be. We do hear from our CBOs. There are. There's things that go out to get feedback from participants from different CBOs. But we thought, why not hear from the actual individuals that actually are from our reentry population to hear what barriers they're faced when they actually are released to gain employment. Let's hear their story. And we do have quite a few, even myself, that are part of CAB that are as well as reentry. So to kind of tell our stories on how you come from one place and where you are now and what struggles you may have went through, how'd you get there, and just kind of finally hear them. And that was one thing that we were working on before he actually passed away. And I would love to be able to continue that in remembrance of him. Same with recommendation number 5, that was for Dr. Hernandez.
So I have a question. So how did you guys go about doing that? And is it possible to continue that work and see what you guys have done on that already?
So nothing has been done yet because of his untimely passing. So where we left off was just talking about ideas. How we were at the beginning, how would we go about that? And the first thing that we thought about was reaching out to our CBOs and having them recommend individuals, also working with the outreach committee to see if we can get information out there for people to notify people and see if anyone would like to come to full cab and tell their story. I know the last we left off, and I'm sorry, was the cab members that are reentry. Me, Ozzy, and whoever else would like to talk about their story to start off as well.
Okay. I think that's an awesome idea.
Would you like to step up and help me?
I will.
Okay.
I actually am working on some reentry things, and I would love to be a part of that. Yeah.
Perfect.
I am not a good secretary either. I just want y'all to know that. I'm doing the best I can with notes, but I'm not a note taker.
That's okay. We can.
But I'm trying.
We will support each other. That's what me and Monique is here.
Lenita, I actually meant to reach out to you to really tell you exactly what that role entails.
Okay.
It's not a lot. It really is highlights of the meeting because we're recording the meeting. So you and I will work together to ensure that our notes say the same thing. And then what you do is you just take the notes, and then Nicole is actually going to report out at our main cab meeting but you and I will review it to make sure they align. And
Okay,
so it's not, it looks like it's more than what it really is, but we
okay,
can talk about that offline.
okay.
So
Yeah,
no
it's not.
worries.
You're gonna be amazed when you talk to Monique. I was afraid my first time. Like, what? So, you
I
do
mean, I
good.
can write reports, I can pull, I can put statistics together and stuff like that, but note taking, I'm like,
Well, that's even more harder than the notes.
I think so.
Awesome. Any other comments from committee members before I open it up to the public?
oh, this is awesome. Okay.
No? Okay. Any public comment?
Oh, I do have one other thing, and this might be for Jill. So I know with my present life before I came here to food bank, I worked with the disabled population. So I worked with people who were on the spectrum, and there is a job department within the county where they can go and they help them fill out applications, and then they have specific um, jobs and specific ways to be hired with the county. And I cannot remember what that department is called. I'll figure it out.
Yeah,
But is there a department like that for people who are reentry?
Are you referring to the Workforce Development Board?
No, it's actually an office directly connected to the county, not workforce development. It's the actual woman there. Her name is Shannon, and she runs project. Oh God, I can't remember. And she actually has had me bringing people to her office at the county offices.
Is it part of public health, perhaps?
It might be a part of public health.
There's a Developmental Disabilities Council, and
Mhm.
as you know, we get the Developmental Disabilities falls under state funding, and they have what is the count? It's a center.
I'll do some research and see if I can find the actual department and then ask you again next month.
Yeah, because they have the regional centers, right?
Yeah, but this wasn't a regional center job. This was a job that came through the regional center. This was a job that the county itself, Contra Costa County, and Alameda County doesn't do it. Sacramento County does it, and Contra Costa County does it. And it's an actual county job where they work for the county, but they don't go through the same ways of being hired. They have some stipulation where they can bypass a lot of the background checks and all of that, where they can actually become an employee for Contra Costa County. And it's an actual office that you guys have at the county level who helps them bypass and get qualified for the jobs. And then they go to work for the county. So we had some people in the county hospitals as janitor. Well, they're not called janitors, but they're called something technicians.
So are you talking about by Ibarra by chance?
I haven't heard of that one.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll figure it out and then I'll ask you. Because I think there's a way to create that if it isn't already there for people who are in reentry too. I hope. Yeah.
I think there are some works being done for reentry.
Mhm.
I know that the workforce board that Jill mentioned, and Jill, you can jump in anytime, just working with them. I know that they do connect to different jobs. Like I think they're doing what she's mentioning, but we do still run into some issues depending on what their charges are. But I know,
Okay.
and Jill, if I'm saying it wrong, please correct me. But I know there's been some jobs, for example, like at Kaiser that they were able to find.
Mhm.
Because I used to work in the employment area before I started doing everything else. And I know that there are some county jobs. I used to work with someone directly in the county where they would come out and meet with reentry people. And I wish I could find his name, but there is someone that does it. I just got to find his name, but he actually
Okay.
tried to help them apply online. I work really close with Glory from Rubicon. So they do try to walk them through that. But I know that some of the issues do fall back depending on what their charges are.
Okay.
It might be the Center for Independent Living. I mean, there's a lot of different resources, and when I look at the developmental disabilities website, a lot of different employment.
No, it wasn't the center.
It's not the Independent Living Resources.
No, it's a actual department within the county.
Right,
And an actual county employee who houses this desk and help the people. I'll figure it out. I'll
But
figure it out.
Nalina has a good point. No, and maybe we can make this bullet because she just made my wheel spinning. It's a question for Jill, and if it doesn't make sense, I understand. But in reference to disability, she's correct. There's different programs out there, even like
Mhm.
for housing. How do we connect all of those for the reentry population to benefit them a little bit better? Because it's hard for them to get into it. And being a previous provider, like they'll come over to say someone like Laos to get their help there, but to get into the housing for someone with disabilities or the employment, that's like a whole different world. Is there a way that we can make a connection with those individuals to kind of streamline it a tad bit better for reentry?
That's $1 million question.
Well, and I think that even going before that happens, right? Because a lot of people who come home don't even know where to start. And if
Mhm.
they don't have a probation officer or a parole officer or someone from the reentry population to help them and walk them through it, they lost. They don't even know where to go to find housing. They don't even know where to go. They just out here applying and don't even know what jobs they should be applying for.
So the good thing for that is if they are currently still in custody, that's where game plan from success comes from, and Gianna can
Okay.
talk about that. So
Well-
that's or other stuff, but there are services that they can actually connect to if they are in, but if not, then we have the network and
Well, and
different.
I think that's the hope of CalAIM as well,
Mhm.
Mhm.
is with the funding that's coming through and the ability to prepare people while they're still in custody for the next
Mhm.
step. And case managers, I think that's where the hope that CalAIM will tie all of those things together, so that
Okay.
And I was going to ask you, Jill, since you said CalAIM, I did a big circle on my paper here to see if we could probably do that presentation again here for those that may not have seen like you did last year
Oh, that was good.
to talk about CalAIM.
I mean, you certainly. I think that there's just an enormous amount of work tying things together, because bringing this substance,
Yeah.
the
Mhm.
alcohol and drugs advisory body or alcohol and other drugs division into the fold, which, as you all know, in the past, mental health and substance use issues have been separate. I think there's a lot of work going on. So I think maybe later in the year to get an update on where we are, because I know
Okay.
they're just swamped trying to get this underneath them. Then there's just so much coming on board all at once.
Yeah.
I think that
There
is,
it is.
and I have to say, even when I go to another jurisdiction, whether it's a county or city, I can be lost because every jurisdiction calls things differently and houses things differently. So, I think some of what the Office of Racial Equity and Social Justice is hopefully going to do is to kind of be the web in the fabric of the county to kind of make those connections. So I think there's a lot happening, and we're trying to do that. And that's one of the things that I'm constantly trying to do is make those connections and collaborate. But one person.
Nicole, I'd like to add something too.
Go ahead.
So the one thing Patrice and I have talked about is creating a repository for CAB members for all of the resources, to put it in a folder or some type of link to where you all can access it. So like that CalAIM presentation, we could put that there to make it available to new CAB members or old CAB members
Okay.
until we're able to get updates, but also like a list of emails for different email addresses
That would be
or website addresses. I mean,
Mhm.
like, the members would have access to go to the CalAIM website or wherever they're housed at and research.
Right.
And Lanita, if you have your information about the what you were speaking about, that could be added. So it really is a resource, a repository of things for you all to be able to have access to. So we're working on that. I've already talked to IT, and hopefully we've come up with a solution to provide this for you all. So
Thank you.
you're welcome.
It's Bridge to Success,
Bridges to success. Yes,
our Human Resources Department.
yes, that's it. Thank you, Jill. I'm sitting here sending an email to one of my coworkers like,
You were
"What is
determined.
this?" Now I don't have to send it.
And
Bridges
thank you.
to success.
Thank
Yes.
you, Jill, for putting it in the chat, the link.
Yeah, we love that office. They do some awesome work over there.
Thank you for that feedback. Okay. Any more comments or feedback in reference to this last recommendation before we move on to our next agenda item? Okay, so I'll have more information or data for our next call for us to look into in reference to the recommendations. Okay, so our next item, oh, okay, we're still on number 5, sorry, is to review our policy and budget charter, which is attachment 4 on page 12. And we kind of looked at this over during our retreat. We want to take a glance at it again to see if you have any questions around understanding what our purpose is and our responsibilities. And I really appreciate the questions that you both have as we go through this, but we wanted to make sure that we go through that again. So is there, I won't read it verbatim. Is there any questions regarding the policy and budget committee charter?
No,
I hear
I
none.
didn't even- I read it earlier.
Okay. And I haven't made any changes to it. I thought it would, we're
Okay.
still, our responsibilities are the same for this year. So
And Nicole, this will be a standing item that will be on each agenda. So
okay,
just for your reference, and throughout the year as you're doing work, if you want to make changes to this document, because it is in draft form, if you all agree that, oh, this is something that we're no longer doing or we are responsible for, so it can be updated.
okay.
Okay.
So I would say then for us, as we go through the months and start working on our work group, if we feel as a committee that maybe something changed, we could definitely, like she said, make those recommendations and change it. See how that goes. But as of right now, this is how we're starting off. And if there's any recommendations for any changes, you're welcome to add those comments as well.
Okay.
So if there's no, we don't have to vote or nothing, right? Because there's no changes. Just keep going. Okay. So we'll go ahead and go to our work plan, which is on page 13. Okay, so this is our policy and budget work plan for 2022. So our goal for this call is to go through the work plan, make suggestions and changes, and also assign responsibilities. You can also, if you have any questions or any recommendations that you want to change around, I'm open to that as well. So the first thing we definitely want to change is the 2022, right? To 2023.
Mhm.
I was trying to be on top of it.
Yes. So what we're doing for this first meeting is we're reviewing the work plan from last year.
Okay.
We're looking at it and you all are determining, is this something you still want to continue or add changes to? And then what I'll do is for next month, when you come back, I'll bring you an updated draft with 2023 and then any changes that you made. So you wouldn't probably likely vote on it today because I'm
Okay.
sure with the other two committees, they did not complete theirs either.
Okay.
So I just stated, okay, I'll bring an update to them for the next meeting. And then you can, maybe if you're at a place where you want to vote on it for the next meeting,
Yeah.
that would be fine. Obviously, the people responsible will change, right? Because
Okay.
we have new members. So, and it doesn't have to be one person. You can agree that all three of you, right, would be responsible, or one or two people, so you have some wiggle room on that column as well.
Okay. So the first key item that we worked on was review research and data findings on where inequities may exist in the criminal justice system per specific demographics such as race, ethnicity, gender, identity, ability, mental health status, and its impact on AB 109 implementation, excuse me, our expected outcome. We wanted to identify the degree of demographics, as mentioned, for those that are experiencing homeless and mental health status, looking for those individuals that are diagnosed that are core-coring, are being served through AB 109. So when I thought about this particular item, I wasn't sure how I wanted if it needed to be reworded, but I automatically thought about the work groups that we were recommending.
Mhm.
That I was going to look at and thinking about our recommendations, where the work groups, if hopefully they are put in place, we'll be able to research and find that data that way. When I look this over,
Mhm.
and I immediately, when it said responsibility, I put my name there because I was working with Crawford, but this can be open to everybody because there may be there may be several ways to find the data that we need for this key action item. What were your, for the committee members, your thoughts on it?
You want to be explicit in naming that then? I mean, I think right now it's like the outcome is kind of vague, but
Okay.
I think the way that you're prescribing it is really concrete, and I think it's a deliverable that's achievable.
Okay. So change. See, now you can make me rethink of how I just said it. I'm gonna have to go back on the recording. So,
You can also email the outcome might be that you would email me, all three of you could email me what you would like to see for that key action step.
okay.
Mhm.
And like Justin may want to elaborate more on it, right? Nicole, you'll have a take on it if Lanita wants to. So like right now you're discussing it,
Okay.
but you may want to fine tune it if you want to email me with exactly, because I will be typing it up. And
Okay.
you know, if I have like this conversation, which I will have because I'm going to refer to the recording, but you know, I may not be able to word it the way you're thinking it. So if you have a specific language that you would like to say, like Justin mentioned, you know, strategic language that, you know, I could definitely put in exactly what you'd like for it to say. And
Okay.
then next month, you all would come back and I will come up with a draft and then we will fine tune it.
So when
And
would you
then
need? Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
is there a way to add the specific workshops that we want to see into this one, or should we leave it broad and open in general?
I think we should go into. Were you gonna say something, Monique?
Well, yeah, I was going to say it really is up to you all. We can be
Okay.
as specific as you like in this particular action step and expected outcomes, or you can, because you can just say like, etc. this particular workshop, you know, and
Mhm.
at least we will have our lens on it. It really is up to you all. You know, you definitely have flexibility to do it however you'd like to do it.
Okay.
I agree. I think we should elaborate on a little bit more and explain exactly what our outcomes are, what we want. So when if we were to email it to you, when would you need that email by, Monique?
I would like it by before the end of next week, because that'll give me time to, because I'll be working on the record of action and I'll be updating this document. So you could do it before Friday, next
Okay.
Friday.
Okay.
Monique, do you have this in a Word document?
Yes, I do.
Are you able to share that with us?
Absolutely.
Wonderful,
Yeah.
thank you.
So we all in agreement with that we can, we'll review and kind of give our thoughts, and then we'll email Monique by next Friday on the changes that we each want to make, and then we can review and approve on our next call.
Right. And if you send me the Word document back, just save it as like your document, you know, then I'll know to compile each document together into the master draft. And then I'll be able to, and you know, I may be able to just state in red who provided the information, and then we'll compile it together and fine tune it and come up with the actual outcome.
Right.
Yeah, so we're all okay with that for it'll probably be for a couple other action items as well, but If we're all in agreement, excuse me, with that, I'll move on to the next one, and then we could just follow that same process if you all are okay with that. Okay.
Sounds
So
good.
then, so the next one was identifying gaps within the county for the criminal justice system to CAB to support policy statement or CAB stance on racial and gender justice issues. With that particular one, we were collaborating with our program and services subcommittee as they were doing surveys and really looking deep into the programs. Previously, Lila was also part of programs and services, so she would attend for that particular key action item. The individual would also attend the program and services meeting and bring back information from that meeting over to our subcommittee meeting each month.
So we need somebody to attend the program and services meeting as well.
Yes, and I believe that one is on Thursdays, right?
Yes, it was yesterday. And we talked about that in their meeting, like them attending your meeting as well, right?
Yep.
So, I mean, keep in mind that you could also review the recording. I don't want it to be burdensome for you all to be trying to attend every meeting. So the meetings are public meetings that are recorded. So you definitely can review the recording, or you can assign someone that would attend those meetings. However, the person usually doesn't attend it monthly. They just attend it periodically. And they, like Ozzy would attend the meetings periodically when she wanted to provide an update. So there'll be a lot of, you'll intersect a lot with these meetings or with the different committees, but it's not like you would have to attend monthly and then report and include it in a report out.
I mean, what do you two think about just saying, and we could think on this because we have time, but maybe like just saying all, and then as we have our meetings, maybe depending on what we're talking about, decide if someone wants to join, or maybe we'll do a recording, but based on what our discussion is and information that we want to bring to our next meeting, and kind of figure out what our steps would be for that month. I do like the idea of being able to go back to the recording just in case we can't make it to that call.
Nicole, can you maybe give a little more guidance in last year, like how this activity or action aided the work group that we're in here? I think I'm failing to see the connection.
Okay, so it programs and services goes hand in hand with our recommendations because their focus is on the AB 109 programs, looking at the CBOs and their services that they're providing compared to our recommendations. So they bring back, go ahead, Jill. They bring back that information. She may say it better than me. Go ahead.
Their main task is they do a survey and they just discuss that. Usually in the spring, they start putting together, like next month, they'll start putting together the questions. They do a survey of all providers that receive AB 109 funds, both county and CBOs.
Wow.
And that survey is to determine like, how's it going? It's kind of a touch base. It gives the CBO the opportunity to say, hey, we're doing great, but in this area, we see a gap. And so from that survey, then the budget ask is built. So in other words, last time it was determined that there was a gap in housing, behavioral health, and help me, Nicole, with the third.
Employment.
And so those were the recommendations that came out to the CCP from this group that said we need to look at putting more funding in these three areas. And so that's why they feed back and forth. But I will say also that at every CAB meeting, there's a report out from the subcommittee. So it's an opportunity to kind of share information and give feedback back and forth.
I
That's
would
really
like,
helpful.
go ahead, Jeff.
Sorry, Lenita, go ahead.
I would like to say to you guys that I am available to attend some of those meetings, and or listen to the recording, so I can be of some assistance there in that area. The only one that I would really have a problem with is going to be the one coming up in. I just looked at my schedule, so the one coming in, I think it's April, because yeah, so the one coming up in April, I'm gonna miss our meeting on the 21st. of April, but I'll be able to do the programs meeting on the 20th. But up until then, I'm Thursdays is a great day for me, so
Okay.
I don't have a lot to do on Thursdays.
I mean, as we go, we're here to support each other. So if there's
Yeah.
ever a chance that you can, and we got to do a recording, or one of us others jump on there, then that's fine.
Okay.
But okay, awesome.
And that's good that Lanita's providing that date that she can attend, because you only have 3 members, so you need 2 for a quorum. However, I really do hope and anticipate that we will have alternates that will be on CAB by then, and they
Right.
also serve on the
Yeah.
subcommittees. So hopefully,
I have
I'm
a-
sure it'll
I have a
work out by
question.
then.
Oh, sorry, Monique.
No, that's okay. I said it, I'm sure it'll work out by then. So thank you.
I love it. I have a clarifying question on that though. So if what I heard from Jill is that the Programs and Services Subcommittee will craft this survey, they'll administer it, then they're going to collect data and report back with that data. Could we shift the kind of language of this so that Lanita doesn't have to spend 2 hours sitting in a meeting every month, to just say that our subcommittee will utilize the results from that other subcommittee to inform and drive our decisions here? I'm just trying to think about people's times. I know that we're all
Oh
pressed.
yeah, we
with-
can shift the wording on this work plan however we want.
Okay.
So I mean, I would recommend because right now we're just kind of going through it and talking about it and getting ideas. And when we all reach out to Monique and email her, we can add those items on there that on how we may want to word things. And then next month we're going to review those and vote on it. But I do like your input in reference. I'm open for change. It's not written in stone, so it's us all agreeing to how we
Yeah.
want this written.
I mean, I think I'm looking for a recommendation, Nicole. What from last year, like, do you think it was beneficial to have Lila attending all of those or trying to attend all of those? Or do you think that that time could be spent working on something else?
So I think that time could be spent working on something else. I think it was just great to be able to have someone come back with that information.
Yeah.
And that's why I say maybe we can focus on it per call, because sometimes we had someone from programming services come, which Lila was also on our committee. So she would come and bring that information to us, or we'll go back to a recording.
Right.
So we don't, I do agree not making it a requirement for
But
her
it
to have to
also,
spend that time.
but it also helped. So last year I was on outreach and whatever that group,
Community engagement.
community,
Mhm.
right? And so from the start of me becoming a CAB member, I've always wanted to be on programs, because that's where I believe that the change in people's way of life actually happens. And some of the programs that are listed in the on the paperwork and in some of the programs that we give money to are actually, I've actually been a part of some of those programs, and I know firsthand how they affect people's lives. And so that's why I've always wanted to be on programs. Like Fast Eddie's and Miss Shirley's transitional housing and all of those programs. I know them. And so to me, it makes sense to have us have representation on the program piece, because they're going to come to us for the money and for the budget purposes anyway. And so they just kind of tie the way that I see it. This is just me though. The way that I see it is they're going to tie hand in hand. And if you have which is why it's important for us to hear from the people who are receiving services, right?
Mhm.
Because if you have people receiving services, you've been to the actual service, you know people in those programs that are providing the services, and then you come to the budget, they all are going to be coming, and it just kind of behooves us to have that information kind of like before the budget process kind of happens, because we may want to fund more for one program or the other that's getting a lot of funding now. We may want to jiggle some funds around. We may want to add more funds to this program and take some from that one. And to have that piece of information from all of those different parties is where it happens on that program committee. So that's why I feel like it's important to be a part of that program committee and be able to bring back those bits of information to the budget committee, because it's going to be how we make some of our decisions.
I definitely do agree with you, as I was part of the programs and services my first year.
Mhm.
But a lot of the data, your idea of what you want to achieve from them is really not where the focus is on the survey. It doesn't get, because that was what I wanted.
Okay.
And majority is there is a year, but a year goes past faster because I've worked with Fazetti's and Miss Shirley's, and I was the manager and such, all that. That's why I went to program and service. But the focus is more on the with the survey, the result from the CBOs, looking where those gaps at, looking where those focuses are. I know
Okay.
at one point they try to find the time to be able to go and talk to those CBOs, but it's really on facilitating that survey. So the data that's really coming back is like what Jill Ray said, is from the survey. It doesn't
Okay.
really get too in depth to where it can. So I think it's more of, if the more that I don't want to say it wasn't an issue. The situation last year had to do with how many members we had and the time available.
Okay.
And so we didn't want to, so knowing how it was last year, we didn't want to just put that on a person and say, you have to do each call. If you have the time to do that, I am open for you to jump on every single call Thursday. That's great. But what I think what me and Monique is saying, that we didn't want to just put it in writing and say you have to, because
Mhm.
we've experienced where people couldn't, and that was just too much of a strain on them.
Mhm.
Because we do work hand in hand. We will work together. So it seems kind of weird, but we're going to work together to talk about recommendations and funding, on where the money should be moved. And we do need the insight from programs and services from the survey to say, what did the survey show? And that's why we didn't move any money last year, because we
Okay.
didn't feel comfortable with saying, for example, we didn't feel comfortable saying, take this amount of money from, for example, Rubicon and put over here if we don't know, but we
The
don't have no
super kind of
statistical
thing.
data to know what's
Mhm.
not working. So
Right.
that's
Right.
kind of like where our mind was last year, is not
Okay.
knowing. And I see Jill, your hand is up, so take the floor.
I was just gonna say that, participating and being part of other subcommittee, if you, that's where your heart is, I think is awesome. One of the things as I listen to you talk and understanding how the services impact the, individuals receiving them, that's really valuable information as they're building the questions for the CBOs.
Okay.
So, I think that's great feedback for you to be able to offer as they're building the questions, because there's the questions that have been asked in the past, but that's not necessarily the only questions that need to be asked in the survey.
Mhm.
So if you are looking for some different information to come out of that, I think that's awesome to offer your feedback on what those questions ought to be.
And I want to add to that, in the programs and services, they do a great job of allowing people to incorporating feedback. So for instance, they're even asking people in the public that are attending the meeting for their feedback, and they come up with whatever the input is. They come up with a viable solution to what that question should be. So it's not just exclusively them making the determination of what should be asked on the survey. The feedback is from the entire public that's reviewing it. And then I don't recall this off the top of my head, but Nicole and Jill might recall, it's probably taken to the main full cab to allow everybody to weigh in. So, you have many opportunities to participate. Obviously,
Okay.
I don't really see you having the time to attend every single meeting of programs and services, but you don't have to. You can review the recording.
Okay.
There's something in the recording that you'd like to state. If you aren't able to attend in person, you can definitely voice that at the main cab meeting when they talk about this survey, because all of you are, it's for everyone on cab to weigh in and make a decision. So
Okay.
I just wanted to add that little bit.
Okay.
That's done in subcommittees has to be approved by the full count. And then you can also review the agendas when they're published to see if there's something on the agenda that sparks your interest.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Any other questions? Monique, for the next item, when is our Jill, when is the racial justice oversight body meetings? I don't know about her, I'm sorry. Do you happen to know?
Well, so
I was going to let Jill take that one.
try and be as PC as I can. So last year they did select a slate of people to sit in the expiring And at the last minute or after the fact, one of the former members who did not respond to any request for application and or interview spoke up after the fact and said she was in fact still interested in sitting on that. So they said, well, we'll come back next month and review that seat. And so they held the entire slate of appointees, and then the chair of the Public Protection Committee canceled both November and December meetings. And therefore that didn't happen. And January's canceled. I heard there a couple times there might be a special meeting, but since the board reorganization is at the beginning of the year and the new assignments are assigned at the beginning of the year, usually January committee meetings of the Board of Supervisors are canceled. And so as it stands right now, the only, I don't know that there'll be a meeting this month.
Yeah.
So there is no ability to have a quorum with the Racial Justice Oversight Board. So all meetings are on hold until that Public Protection Committee makes that decision and then does the appointment of the Board of Supervisors. So long story short, we don't know. We're hoping in February.
Okay.
And
So go
Nicole,
ahead.
just let me just, I just want to let you know that the time check is 12:11 now.
Okay.
And we still have the rest of the work plan, but you guys are doing great on time and you're doing great on interacting with one another. So this is the last item other than next steps. We've already talked about next steps. So
Okay. So for this item, can we just put like pending? Is that something I can put on the work plan until we know what's happening with that? Okay. So we'll
Is
put
there
that. Go
another,
ahead.
is there another group in like that we could replace that item with that would be beneficial, or is that no, Joe?
See, that's a Joe Ray question. What I had.
Many different groups. You know, I think, but the Racial Justice Oversight Body is really key because they were really focused on those in our incarceral system, in particular at this point in time. And so also the Office of Racial Equity and Social Justice is being lifted. So that will be something to consider going forward as well. When we have a more set plan as to how that will roll out. So I would just say pause on that. You guys will be busy enough.
Wonderful, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions before we move on to go to? Okay, so go to is a development of our well, we'll update that for as Patrice mentioned, we go a year. If I'm saying it right, a year ahead, right? For the CAP policy and budget recommendations. I won't go for word for each section, but as we talked about in our retreat, we are still pending for CCP to approve our recommendations that we submitted last year. I will request for our next call for a copy of those budgets so you can actually look at it. It wasn't our retreat document, so that you don't have to go and look for the information. I will ask for it to be included in our next call in February. To give you an idea of the first action item was for us to review the CBO community needs and highlight the programs and services subcommittee survey and align with the AB 109 funding of community programs. It goes right into what Lanita was saying. So one of our responsibilities as policy and budget is to put together those documents and to give recommendations. Now, Patrice helps a lot with that. She actually helps with completing the actual documentations. It's just us giving the information. So it's us looking at those previous recommendations that we did earlier to know if we want to change any of those. And then from the budget, determining if we want to reallocate any of that funding. So that will come later on down the line. And the timeline we gave is around July and October, because it's November is when we give a recommendation to CCP, correct? And that's why we had that timeline. So we want to at least start in July. And if there's going to be changes to the recommendations or looking at that budget, start working on those things so we can have prepared for the recommendations for CCP in November. So our outcome is, of course, as stated, to develop that budget based on budget-based community-based organization needs and community input. We can elaborate on that more if you like, but it's pretty much it's a budget template, and then it's a recommendation document that we have to share. And we can show you that again on our next call. Okay. Now, the next one, we can talk about that in more depth, but that was the review our quarterly financial reporting presented by CCP meeting to ensure funds are being expended as intended. So we will have those, we can share those documents again on our next calls. You can actually see what those look like so that if there's other outcomes you want to add, we could definitely do that. And our last one again was around some of the key actions that we wanted to talk about, which is mental health, increasing funding for that and services, propose bringing together CBOs and county agencies to identify cultural appropriate and accessible mental health resources, and consider the implications of CalAIM in providing more accessible mental health. So this is really around us looking, we need to, I need to provide you guys with those documents to look at. If there's any other outcomes or anything that you may want to expand on, I'm open to hear, and we can definitely do that as well.
One of the items I brought up in the board retreat was about the balance of funds that are being carried forward. And I believe someone made a recommendation that we meet with someone within the county, and I don't know who it was or which department, but that could kind of walk us through an approach or a way to expend those funds, so that way if and when the state goes into reductions in county budgets, that this department isn't impacted by that because we have such a large balance moving forward. Does anyone remember who that recommendation came from?
Well, Patrice talked on that point. I don't recall who she said.
So we're working through our county administrator's office, Paul Ray's, to develop a process to spend down those funds. And so it's again tied to public protection. So meetings, it's hard to do that business.
Thank you, Joe. I was thinking, I didn't want to say his name. I was so thank you for that confirmation. But and then correct me if I'm wrong, Joe, but that's the part where from a CAB perspective, where we talked to CCP about where we thought the excess of funds could be allocated. So we did, as CAB, with CCP, we did join the call and give some recommendations on where we thought those excess funds could go. So what we did is we looked at the budget and we compared it to our recommendations. And then we just kind of typed out, hey, here are some suggestions from CAB that we think that you could do.
Okay. So it's not really our place to like advocate for that spend down. It's more just highlighting areas where it could be spent.
It's an and, not an or.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I think I'm totally new to all of this. So I think a little more kind of guidance and maybe how to be tactful, because I think it's an opportunity for, I know myself and maybe others to kind of learn about that.
Yeah, and you know what I'll do is I'll reach out to Paul and then I'll ask him what the process is for that going forward, and I will send that to Monique so she can share it with you, because I'm not sure where it's at in the process.
Okay.
But absolutely at the advocacy at the Community Corrections Partnership and the Public Protection Committee to keep an eye on those funds and to ensure that they are spent down. It's a significant amount.
Right. You said which two? I'm sorry, the CCP and which? What was the second one?
Corrections Partnership, and then the Public Protection Committee, which is the two of the board. This year it's John Joya and Federal Glover on that. And I have not yet seen a date when the next meeting will be. Monique, have you?
Nope, I haven't seen a date yet. They haven't updated the calendar. But Justin, also keep in mind, like some of these questions you can bring to the CAB meeting for the general body, because there is a process how you all will come together and collaborate to, if you recall being at the CCP meeting last year, it's assigned so many people, right? Because you can't violate your quorum with the Brown Act, right? So usually it's the chair, Crawford, and then Nicole usually is the vice chair, right? But I guess you could call it, the leadership will determine who will be speaking at the CCP, because you're advising them, right? You're advising them to say, we want these funds expended, right? You know, and so only so many people can speak. I believe it's 3, if I'm not mistaken. And so if you want to be a part of that, you would talk to Crawford or Nicole, or, you know, maybe your input is just vital, you know. So there is a process on how you all would present at the CCP or the PPC.
It's one forum of the full body could speak at that meeting using public comment.
Say that again, you broke up a little bit, Jill. I think I understood it.
One less than a quorum of the full body could speak at the CCP meeting, and using public comment period to do so. And that's public comment in general, and then there's public comment on each agenda item.
That's really helpful. Thank you. I think I was just kind of brainstorming out. So my background, I really like to be explicit in these type of documents because I like to have something that's tangible and measurable. And so I don't know if that's something that we could also add here as maybe another key action step or action expected outcome of, you know, continuing to advocate for increasing the expenditures of that remaining balance.
I personally think I appreciate your feedback in reference to this area. This was new to me last year, and I could definitely tell you that Jill and Patricia is really great explaining and helping us through that process.
Yeah.
So we could probably I do want to look at this and make changes. So I'm all open for additional suggestions, and I'm pretty sure when you start seeing the other documents, there's some more that come up. So I know for I personally don't feel that with this section goal 2 that we outside of the recommendation you just gave, really fully know what changes we're going to make until we actually have everything in front of you, because I'm pretty sure once you see the other documents, there's going to be some expected outcomes that we may want to add. But I would also want to just, with my last year and what I learned, elaborate on this process as well. I also wanted something tangible to be able to see, because it was difficult to understand how to make these recommendations, and it was really confusing at one point. But I will definitely say that we have a lot of support from the full CAP and from RJ and Jill going through this. So
that's helpful. Thank you, Nicole.
Appreciate all your feedback. Any other additions or questions? And if I don't know, and then maybe in February, because I know it's really helpful for me my first year, and I would love a refresher anyway, how Patrice actually went through what we're expected to complete. So last year she kind of went through the documents for me on the budget and just kind of reviewing everything, kind of like she done a retreat. And it was really helpful because there's a lot of data that we're going to be looking at. So if that's helpful, if she could do that again, that would be great.
Awesome.
So
Okay.
I do
Go ahead.
think maybe I can recap what the next steps are, if you, and
Yeah.
then you can help me if I get something wrong. So one next step that I know Justin requested that I send the Word document for the work plan, and you all can add your updates on the work plan, revising how it's worded, and then I will provide you with a updated draft, particularly to include in next month's meeting for policy and budget. And then another step was to make sure that I include all the budget documents, that they can actually see the numbers and how as you're explaining the process, they can see the different allocations, categories, etc. So those are the 2 next steps I have. Did I
One
miss?
more,
Okay.
that document that Crawford created.
Yes,
For the
that you,
recommendations for CCP for
okay.
it should, he has 2. There's one that breaks down in bullets, expanding our 3 recommendations that we're focusing on.
Okay.
And then also there's a document he created about the excess funds that would be great for Jessica, because I know we were just talking about that, where we can kind of show him how we provided recommendations to CCP for that, the spending down the excess fund. So I just think I know he typed it out in like a Word document.
Okay, I could definitely locate that document and show it to you before I add it.
Okay, I'm gonna try to look for it too.
Okay.
See if I can find it because
Yeah.
we have a whole bunch of those.
So I think it's good to say that Nicole and I, she'll attend the agenda planning meeting, which we go over the planning of the next month's agenda. But we also, a few days before the agenda is posted, I reach out to the chairs for any information that maybe needs to be updated. So we have a few check-ins before we actually post the agenda.
Okay.
And so, thank you, Jill, for all these resources. I'll send them over to the folks. So, yeah, so I think those are good 3 next steps. And any other information, if you want to add.
And the last part is to make sure that we have, once we get the Word document from you, our verbiage over to you by the 3rd, correct?
By next Friday, yes.
Okay.
That's the 3rd, February 3rd. Thank you for that.
Monique, do
Okay,
you mind just putting a reminder in that body of that email for us?
Absolutely.
Wonderful.
I
Thank you
definitely
so
will. Yeah.
okay. So it is 12:26. Before we adjourn, are there any other comments or questions? None? Any from public
No.
comment? Okay. Well, then at 12:26, we can adjourn to our next subcommittee meeting on February the 17th at 11 o'clock.
Thank you. Great
Happy
job.
Friday, everybody. Have a
Bye.
great
Bye, you
weekend.
guys.
Thank
Have a
you.
good day.
Bye-bye.